Domestic violence cannot be overemphasized. In our world today, it has become the order of the day. It has become something that is reoccurring in both families and in homes and even in relationships. On today's talk show, we'll be checkmating, or we'll be looking into the impact of domestic violence on the child, or on kids or children. And we don't know if there is actually impact, or if there are impact or there aren't. So we are going to be looking into all of those today, and we'll try to see how possible to, look for probable solution for, this impact. Hello, everybody. You all are welcome to the Lifestyle Show here on New World TV. I still remember your girl, AJ. Thank you all once again for your love and support. Thank you very much for joining us today. And if you haven't subscribed to the Lifestyle playlist, please do subscribe to the Lifestyle playlist on New World TV. Like, subscribe, and keep sharing. Once again, you all are welcome. With me here in the studio today are two lovely people. One face you guys are very much aware of. He's my boss. And then we have a lady. She's very beautiful. Hello, ma. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
What's your name?
I am Ikechukwu Ngozi by name.
Okay.
Yes, I'm an educator, a lecturer, and the managing director of Golden Saint Academy, Bagida.
Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
This is our first time coming. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Okay?
Thank you for having me.
And then we have Mr. Jerry Etonam. He's my boss, although he doesn't like being called the boss. So Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be simple, so I'm trying to be simple.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Well,
so, regards you guys' busy schedule, I'm grateful you guys are able to at least make out time to be here today. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome
for coming. First of all, let's understand what violence is before we talk about domestic violence. So, Ma, what do you understand by violence?
Okay, the word violence is something that has to do with any physical force that, has to later on inflict injury, damages, and destruction. So you see the words that are characterized with this.
Really intense.
Yes.
All right. So, what do you understand by domestic violence then? It seems you're not in agreement with what you said.
Well, I do agree in a larger extent. What I want to add is also that violence is not always physical. It could be verbal, and it could also have an impact on the person that goes beyond the physical. It can change your way of thinking. It can disrupt the way you behave or your conduct and other things too. So it's not only physical. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your understanding of domestic violence?
Well, dom simply means home. So I think basically we are talking about the kind of violence that happens in the home. And by home, I don't necessarily mean with you and your parents. You can live in a compound house that is a home, which means there are other tenants with their children and all that. There could be domestic violence there. The same way to some extent also even in the community, which could be considered as home. Because we know some communities, other parents have that luxury or that freedom, if I can use the word, to also nurture other people's children, which means when you go wrong, they can still give it to you. When you go right too.
Yeah, that's in the African setting.
So that's it.
All right then. So, Ma, I'll begin with you again.
Okay.
What are some signs or indicators that a child may be experiencing or witnessing domestic violence?
From my experience as a teacher and a home tutor, most of these signs are something I sit down to ask myself, do the parents actually consider the effect on the child before participating or engaging in domestic violence? One of the signs is syndromes of traumatic stress disorder, which is a disorder that affects the child's well-being. The day-to-day activity of that child is usually disrupted. You have a situation where the child tends to become parasomic in nature. They don't eat well, they don't sleep well, their there's always a constant fear that is, around, surrounding them, that they tend to see themselves most times, as the case may be, as predictors or victims. The child is usually scared of interacting with their peers or whatever. There's a lot of signs attached to it. The child is also distracted, with school works and daily activities. So there's a lot of signs. It can't be overemphasized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So how about you?
I think I agree with her again. The very first thing is behavioral changes. So there is a change in the pattern of behavior for that child. Some may tend to cry sometimes over little things because it is coming from a place where there's a reflection from what they may have gone through.
Exactly.
So you can just tap a child something small, but the essence to that tap is that I've been caned mercilessly before, and then it can bring that kind of behavior. Another thing too with the same behavior is aggression. Sometimes when they become used to probably the caning you are doing every time, then they have to find another manner of displaying that aggression, which may be taking it on other people.
Yeah.
At times too, it can also lead to disrespect. So maybe as the behavior is changing, somebody will be asking, this child used to be polite, respectful, helpful and all that, but all of a sudden we start seeing that kind of change. Another thing too that I think is also very common is withdrawal. There are those kind of people where sometimes or most times they don't want to be among people, either for fear of offending or causing something that will cause somebody to mistreat them. Another thing also to look at is it might not be common, or I don't know if exactly it is a cause from those things, but bedwetting. Okay. I went to French school where I had a guy who was, I think, 4 or 5 years older than me, who was still bedwetting, and it was something that we didn't know. But unfortunately, I think he took one of the students, went with the same car with the student, and they went home. And for some reason, the mom started shouting the moment he entered the house, "Why you wet the bed in the morning before you went to school?" All that, and it became something. The other aspect is physical complaint. So the child will actually come to you and tell you, okay, my mom has been beating me, my dad has been beating me.
That's on a rare occasion.
They throw things at me, or they starve me from eating and all those. Like I said, it might not always be physical. They starve me from eating and all that.
All right then. So, Mr. Jerry.
Okay.
How can parents or caregivers who survive who are survivors of domestic violence communicate with their children about what's happening?
I think first of all is to ease away the taboo of when someone treats you badly, you shouldn't speak up. In certain communities or in certain societies, as the child, you don't pretty much have a say, even when it's about something that is inflicting damage on you.
In certain society, we're talking about Africa.
Yeah.
So bring it down. It's not certain. When you make it certain, you're giving
No, you see, I haven't been to all parts of Africa. Even in Togo or Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, I haven't been to all parts of those African countries. So I can't speak for all of them.
Right.
I can only speak because I have witnessed some, and it's from that setting. That is why I'm using the word setting of them. So the first thing, first of all, is to be able to ease away that taboo. We can't necessarily take it away completely, because I feel there's always a pro and a con when it comes to an activity or something that we should do. So to ease away, first of all, the fact that we can't talk about domestic violence, because most of the time when we say it, we look at husband and wife, basically, or maybe when you are a maid working with your auntie or your uncle, those one. But sometimes even biological children, people still undergo domestic violence. So ease away that taboo of talking about it. And secondly, to when a child comes to you, for example, on the rare case when you said they come with a complaint, sometimes we listen but we don't listen, in the sense that, I have also gone through this before, don't worry, to go. But just because you pass through doesn't mean he or she will pass through. He or she may die out of it, or he or she may have a consequence that will linger on, and it keeps transferring from place to place. So when you ease that conversation, it also allows the child to come to you more, then you can have the conversation. Apart from that, also, when a child comes to you, your approach to the parent shouldn't be in form of a rebuke, because first of all, you know it's not your child.
Right.
If you are trying to help, you should find a way to go about it. For example, you can go with the child to the parent and ask the child to say it in front of the parent. It is difficult and it is tough, but I think that one of those approaches is good. So the child has confidence now. When the parent knows now that when you do this, the child tells my teacher, which at some point can even go to the extent of going to the right authorities, there's also a bit of that fear. So I can say those two for the meantime.
There was something you said about easing away taboo. I want to kind of tweak your brain a little bit. You do know that in our African society, one thing that your mother trains you to do is mind your business. That is number one. Chill, calm down. Let's calm down. You okay? You know you're a realist. I mean, so I want to. That's why I said I want to tweak your brain.
Okay.
When you're training up a child, my mom will tell you, mind your business. That's number one. Do not discuss our family business outside. Do you understand? So how do you want to ease away such taboo when from the upbringing of that child it's been embedded in that child that do not discuss this and mind your business? How do you want to go about it?
Okay, first of all, what I would do personally is to validate that child's feelings. When I say validate is when I listen to what happened, I wouldn't have to take sides. If the child went wrong somewhere, I'll have to point it out. Where the child didn't do wrong, I'll have to point it out. And where the child has done wrong, but the punishment that came through is not meritable, I'll have to indicate that. But the moment I make the child feel like I said, somebody will say, oh, we've gone through that before, so let it go. That is where the problem is. Now, if the child can't come to someone outside the family, I don't know if it's the same for every family though, but there's always that favorite auntie or that favorite uncle. There's always that person you are a bit more attached to than probably than your parents. Sometimes it can be your own very siblings. It can be, sometimes family friends are also considered outside people, but sometimes they are the people that can actually reach out. Because when you reach out to such a person and the person can't go directly to the one who perpetrated the act, you can go to probably a sister of you or brother of yours or an uncle or someone of yours. And I said earlier on that sometimes the home goes beyond just the family, society. There are certain instances where some people go to maybe an elderly person that they know. So definitely if there is an issue such as that, if it is always inside the family, you won't go out. So you continue suffering. That's why I say sometimes there has to be that courage. But you need to have that courage when you validate the child's feelings. When he or she is at fault, you say. When it's not, you say. It's not to instigate the child against the parents anyways.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, outside this very question, there's something I want to ask. There are parents that believe that caning is a method through which you use in teaching a child. I'm giving this instance because I literally went through it. Okay? So it's a life instance I'm giving. So there are parents that believe that you have to cane a child for that child to learn. And there are kids that adapted through that method. Have you witnessed that before?
Yeah, it's something that usually happen around the school environment as well. You see parents who do these things at home, and then when a teacher does it, it's now a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you getting me now? You raise, oh, why did you beat my child? And then the child is like, Mom, but you used to beat me at home. So it's like a normal thing. But to me, it's not normal because you must not always violate the child's peace for you to tell that child that you're doing the wrong thing. What do I mean? You must not always beat that child, abuse that child.
Their first instance is the cane.
Exactly. Exactly.
Most of the times they feel like the cane is the only way to solve the problems because some kids they have this word that some kids you just saying it is not enough. You have to do something for them to understand that okay, what they've done is so intense. But to me, it's not just the best way to treat a child or tell a child that he or she is doing the wrong thing.
In our society today, do you think that kids will learn verbally?
Obviously, they do.
Without spanking.
Exactly, they can. It's depending on how you communicate these wrong things to them. Yes, not every kid is stubborn. That kid A is stubborn doesn't define kid B. That's one thing. When that cane comes out, even for you that is an innocent child, when you go, Mommy, please don't beat him. Before you know it, she's already removing her shoe to spank you. Then you see, so most times it's not always about using that physical. Sometimes you can talk. They listen. There's a spirit with children. I've worked with them. I don't flog children, but I can talk to you in a way that you go back and start crying. And then I'm like, but I didn't beat you. Then you see the same child coming to me and like, auntie, I'm sorry, ma, please, I won't do it again. So what changed? There's a thing about children. When you make them get used to that cane, they can dictate your next action.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, if they still, after all, mommy will just beat me.
Yeah.
So it's even making the thing worse. It's not changing anything. So sometimes make them not to predict your next move. Next thing, mommy is taking a stick on me. So let them.
A typical example is to, sometimes in most homes, if I can say, the moment your parents have visitors, you are not supposed to be there. Exactly. So sometimes they have a gaze they give you.
African home.
Exactly. So that is equally one of the ways that we can avoid the use of the cane. And for example, myself, I can't say cane is bad. But sometimes on how you use it, and sometimes also the frequency. Like I said earlier on, your first resort shouldn't be the cane.
There are kids with literal marks on their body.
Oh,
you get it's not. And before their parents are as aggressive as you are talking, before you know they will use force.
Which is very wrong.
Which is very wrong. But then they are not. I don't think there are any. I don't know. There's a word for it. Are there any agencies that probably check men's families and currently
it's there. I
don't think they're functioning.
I think institutions, even not just institutions, most countries have a tenure of major issues. So there's a particular time. You see, right now, the major issue in almost every country is climate.
Of course, yeah.
So it's meaning that climate is taking the priority and the other things are going at the expense. Some time ago it was COVID.
Yeah.
Some time ago it was human rights. But that human rights is not talking about the child alone.
Right.
Because in most understanding, you are a child growing up. So those before you know better than you. So the focus is not on you now. It's the you will become. So therefore, whatever they are doing to you now is going to make you who you become.
Well said.
And since they were slapped, the slippers thrown out and stuff, it made them who they are. And finally, we make comedy or fun out of it. It is true though, but at times too, maybe it's because we are not used to other alternative. We think that is the only way. Because it was done probably to my dad, it transferred to me, I also did to my daughter or my son, then it continues. But if from my generation, for example, I have noticed some things and I want to make the amendments, maybe that alternative will come now. She said something about correcting the child will go back, cry, even come and say, sometimes they will say thank you or sorry and stuff. Maybe the child has seen an alternative from her than what she gets at home.
Exactly.
And looking at the pain that is at home, she will prefer to go with this one.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's something again I want to say. There's this thing that comes with telling the child what he or she did before actually spanking that child. Now you tell that child, do you know why I'm beating you? And that child is like, you don't even have the right to say I stole the meat or something. But then you are like, after flogging that child, you're like, I'm beating you because this is wrong. And then the child gets that, not like you're abusing the child. Even sometimes you did not do that thing and then you get
sometimes your siblings can lie on top of you.
And then mommy don't want to hear what you're saying. She's already on you. Exactly. So most times the mechanism I came up with is like telling the child what he or she must have done before using the cane or whatever, or the words, and that's basically it.
Okay, so what are some strategies for helping children develop healthy coping mechanisms and resilience in facing domestic violence?
Okay, I usually go with this keyword: it is not your fault that daddy and mommy is fighting, or that there's a domestic violence going around the home. It is not your fault, and it doesn't define that action as being good. Now the next thing to do is you want to reassure them, because you see that most of the times they are emotionally damaged. Like they don't even, you tend to see kids saying, I will never get married again because my dad is always beating my mom. There's no beautiful thing again about the home. You understand? That child even wants to spend time outside than coming back home. So most times the best thing to do, one of the mechanisms to adopt is by reassuring that child again that he or she is loved, fighting for that child as a survivor. Even if you're not a survivor, you can always be a responsible adult because you know those kids are vulnerable. Now they tend to be vulnerable because now they need love. When there's a space there, that's why you see rape is because that child is not getting that affection again. I have an experience in school. There's this child who I used to home tutor, and then you get to see that child always crying. And then I'm like, why are you crying? You know, first thing is I want to listen to him. I want to listen. Why are you crying? Then that child is like, mommy is always crying. And I'm like, it's not your fault that mommy is crying, so don't cry. Okay, first of all, reassuring that child, building the confidence. There's something I tell my kids as a director. I'm like, say this: you are bold, you're brilliant, and you're beautiful. Once I see that damage in you, I start to reassure again. So this is something I feel like every individual who sees this thing in kids shouldn't use it against them. They should always try to build that love around them. I feel this mechanism can always,
so
work. Thank you.
I have two things to say. First is stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself?
Yes, I'm saying that in this. No, she spoke about confidence. Okay. If you are confident, it means maybe when a person comes with aggression, you come with pacifism. So you go more in a peaceful approach, at least for the most part of it. Well, if it's not working, if you knock the person. No, I don't mean to. Put violence with violence, but find a way, because sometimes no matter how peaceful you want to be, the level of the violence that has been on the other person perpetrating the act might be too high for you.
Of course.
So at times you have to stand for yourself. Sometimes, even in our communities, there are people where you look like the person is tough. Somebody is like one like this. But when that person starts doing his things, you mellow.
True.
It's confidence. The person knows you can beat him very well. But there's that confidence that I need to stand up to this person. If not, that fear that I have will continue, and that person continues to have that power over me. The second aspect also, especially with domestic violence, is to, if probably as a teacher, if you can, find an activity that engages the student after school. It doesn't have to be too much school. It can be football match. It can be a chess game. It can be something that they have to create with clay. Anything that has to engage them, especially children that you have identified that there is an essence, or there is an issue rather, of domestic violence. At times,
this distraction, what does
it takes them first away from the physical environment of the violence. Because sometimes what they see is in their mind. They may not know how to express it, but it's in their mind. So if they are not in that same space, already it is good. But when they have that luxury of time, that they are out of that space and there's nothing to be done to, then they start reminiscing, and those things start coming back. Sometimes, off topic a bit, if you have heartbreak and you are focused on work or something, it doesn't affect you the same way if you don't have anything to do.
You don't have
so that same approach.
And I do mind and all that.
All right.
So it's important.
Okay, so let me have a final take from you regarding this.
The next thing is just, you've said it all, but I feel like also picking out the things that the child loves doing. Every child likes doing a particular thing. It could be drawing, it could be, and because of this situation about domestic violence, it can even make the child not to believe that they can be anything better than what they've been seeing at home. So sometimes if you see a child who is having these syndromes in them, you can always look for what the child likes to do and then engage that child in that activity. I think that would also
I'll give you an example early on, for example, that as a teacher who is in a school where is teaching IT, so technology, information, there is no computer. A teacher can go to the extent of bringing his or her own laptop or even a desktop setup. Some can show you videos. Some can even go to some drawing everything on the board, if possible, showing you. At that moment, somebody might think, well, it's just theory at the moment. But if you're able to really know that theory, when you go and you see the same thing on the computer, it shouldn't be that hard for you. So it goes also to the extent of patience. It's something as humans we find very difficult to have. She spoke about listening. before you can listen, you need to have the patience.
Exactly.
Because the child is not going to come and be telling you like the way we are talking right now. There's that childishness in them.
And they won't even say it directly.
They have their own language.
You have to discern. Yes.
You have to find a way, and it's not easy. So some people may say like, well, they've tried and the child is not saying it. You have to find a different mechanism. First of all, like I said, taking the child away from that environment can be a start. Because sometimes too, I think parents feel like when they send a child to school, it's the teachers have to do the rest. But if I'm continuing to do the rest and you are still damaging the base of it, then I'm not progressing. And it's the child that is still suffering. So patience, love, listen, and try and do alternatives other than what you went through.
Okay, to even add to what they've said, there's something called follow-up. When you discover that, you keep following up to ensure that there is no damaging of the base which you're talking about. And then I've seen movies where when the parents want to fight, they lock the door. They ensure that, they are in the sitting room.
The children still know. They still know what is going on.
Stuff like go inside. Or for instance, when the mom, for instance, the wife just comes and maybe calls the husband with his full name, the whole family just
knows that something is happening.
So there are so many mechanisms, or there are so many processes that we could use to actually cope this. It's actually possible to actually cope this domestic violence thing and help the kids, because like they've said or established that this has a long run effect if not well treated.
That child one day becomes that parent.
Exactly.
Like
15 times victimized.
Exactly. Okay, so we've come to the end of today's show. Thank you very much, Ma, for coming.
You're welcome.
She did perfectly well for me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jerry, for joining us today. Of course, he's my boss. Until we come your way next week, don't forget to stay blessed, stay safe. Plenty love from me to you. Bye bye.